Vienna, 1876. The ivory-hued parlor of the Schönbrunn Palace sparkled with late afternoon light when Archduke Viktor Rothenberg first encountered the woman who would upend his carefully ordered world. She stood by the window, her silhouette haloed by sunlight, speaking quietly with Countess Esterhazy. The Archduke, third in line to the Austro-Hungarian throne, had endured countless palace gatherings, but something about this woman's posture, neither stiffly formal nor carelessly relaxed, caught his attention. "Who is she?" he asked Baron Clemens, his aide-de-camp. "Ah," Clemens smiled knowingly. "That is Miss Amara Ziegler, Your Highness. The American portraitist. Her Imperial Majesty has commissioned her to paint Princess Sophie's likeness before the wedding." Victor raised an eyebrow. "An American woman? Painting an imperial portrait?" "Indeed. Quite unconventional, but the Empress saw her work in Paris last season. Apparently, Miss Ziegler captures something essential in her subjects. Something the court painters miss." Victor studied her more carefully. She wore a modest dove-grey dress, simpler than the elaborate gowns around her, her dark hair pinned in a practical coil at the nape of her neck. When she turned, he caught a flash of intelligent eyes and a determined chin. "The Emperor approved this?" Victor asked, knowing his uncle's rigid adherence to tradition. "The Empress can be persuasive," Clemens replied diplomatically. At that moment, Amara Ziegler looked across the room and caught Victor watching her. Instead of the expected blush or demure glance away, she held his gaze for 3 heartbeats, an eternity in the carefully choreographed ballet of court protocol, before offering the slightest nod of acknowledgement. "How interesting," Victor murmured. The following morning, Victor found himself pausing outside the yellow salon, now temporarily converted into Miss Ziegler's studio. The door stood ajar, and he heard Princess Sophie's bright laughter, a sound rarely heard in the echoing palace corridors. "Please hold still, Your Highness," came a melodious voice with the unmistakable cadence of American English. "Just 3 more minutes in this position." "But my arm is falling asleep," protested Sophie, his cousin and the future bride of the Bavarian crown prince. "Then we shall wake it up with stories. Tell me about the first time you rode a horse. Did you fall?" "I fell spectacularly my first time." Victor edged closer to the doorway. Court protocol dictated that Princess Sophie should be discussing her distinguished lineage, her education in languages and music, her preparation for royal duties, not childhood misadventures. "I did fall," Sophie admitted with another laugh. "Right into a puddle. My governess nearly fainted." Victor stepped into view, causing both women to turn. Princess Sophie immediately straightened, her face resuming its practiced royal mask. But Miss Ziegler merely nodded respectfully without interrupting her work. "Archduke Victor," Sophie said formally. "Are you seeking the Chamberlain?" "I believe he's with Mother in the East Wing." "No," Victor replied, studying the large canvas on the easel. All he could see from his angle was a wash of colors, not yet resolved into recognizable forms. "I was merely curious about the progress of your portrait." "Miss Ziegler refuses to let me see it until it's complete," Sophie said with a hint of her earlier animation. "Most vexing." Amara's brush never stopped moving. "The relationship between artist and subject is sacred, Your Highness," she said to Victor, though her eyes remained fixed on her work. "Like a confession. Complete only when the final word is spoken." "And are you a priest now, Miss Ziegler?" Victor asked, amused by her boldness. "No, Your Highness. Merely someone who believes that seeing oneself too early can change who one becomes." The philosophical reply surprised him. Court artists were technicians, not thinkers. An interesting perspective. America is full of interesting perspectives, Archduke. It's our chief export, after cotton and machinery. Princess Sophie's eyes widened at this borderline impertinence, but Victor found himself suppressing a smile. "Then I look forward to seeing the final revelation, Miss Ziegler." He bowed slightly. "Princess, Miss Ziegler." As he departed, he heard Sophie whisper, "You cannot speak to an archduke that way." "I apologize if I've offended," came the measured reply. "But in my experience, Those born to greatness often appreciate honesty more than flattery. Now, tell me about the horse's reaction to your fall. Victor paused in the corridor, surprised by the insight. Indeed, honesty was the rarest commodity in palace life. That evening at dinner, the Empress inquired about Sophie's portrait. Miss Ziegler works diligently, Mother, Sophie replied. Though her methods are unconventional. Art requires freedom, does it not, Archduke? The Empress asked Victor unexpectedly. I wouldn't presume to know, Your Majesty, he replied carefully. My talents lie elsewhere. Nonsense, the Empress said. You sketch admirably. I've seen your military drawings. Victor felt heat rise to his face. Those technical drawings of fortifications and troop deployments were never meant for artistic appreciation. The American has an exhibition history in Paris, continued the Empress. Perhaps you might show her the palace art collection. As a professional courtesy. Victor recognized the request for what it was, an imperial command thinly disguised. Of course, Your Majesty. Later that night, in his private apartments, Victor found himself unable to sleep. He stood at the window overlooking the palace gardens, bathed in moonlight. The court was suffocating, endless rituals disguising empty gestures. His military duties provided some escape, but even there, his royal blood guaranteed advancement without merit. On his desk lay dispatches from the turbulent Balkans, where the empire's grip was slipping. Victor understood the complexities, the ethnic tensions, the rising nationalism, but his uncle the emperor saw only disorder to be suppressed. Perhaps that explained his interest in Miss Ziegler's directness. She seemed untouched by the stifling courtly artifice, speaking her mind without calculation. The next afternoon found Victor escorting Amara through the imperial gallery. She wore a simple blue dress, practical for a working artist, her only adornment a silver locket at her throat. The Habsburgs have collected art for centuries, Victor explained, gesturing to the seemingly endless corridor of gilt-framed masterpieces. Yes, I can see that, she replied, studying a Titian. But what do you see when you look at these, Your Highness? Glory? History? Or something else? The unexpected question made him pause. Obligation, perhaps, he admitted. Each portrait tells a story of duty fulfilled. Each landscape marks territory gained or lost. That's rather cold, isn't it? The Habsburg monarchy isn't known for its warmth, Miss Ziegler. She turned to face him. Yet Princess Sophie laughs in her portrait sessions. The Empress appreciates beauty. And you, Archduke, question purpose. That suggests something more than cold duty. Victor studied her face, the direct gaze, the slight smile that suggested she saw more than most. You're very observant. It's my profession, she replied simply. May I ask something personal? He hesitated, then nodded, curious. Why military service? Most royals merely wear the uniform without embracing the hardships. The question struck uncomfortably close to his private thoughts. How do you know I've embraced hardships? Your hands, she said. You have calluses that ceremonial sword-carrying doesn't produce. And you speak of fortifications with knowledge, not just rhetoric. Victor flexed his hands unconsciously. The empire faces real threats. I believed understanding them firsthand would make me more useful. To the emperor? To the people, he corrected quietly, surprising himself with his candor. They suffer when decisions are made by men who've never seen a battlefield. Her eyes widened slightly. That's not a perspective I expected from Habsburg royalty. Perhaps we're not all as cold as our portraits suggest, Miss Ziegler. Their tour continued through the gallery, but something had shifted. Their conversation flowed more freely as they discussed the merits of various artistic techniques, the history captured in the paintings, and the changing world beyond the palace walls. When they reached a small vermeil, Amara stopped, transfixed. Look how he captured the light, she whispered. As if it's alive. Victor watched her face, animated with genuine passion. Is that what you seek in your own work? Living light. I seek truth, she said. The essence beneath the appearance. And have you found Princess Sophie's essence? I've begun to. She's more than the perfect Habsburg princess they've trained her to be. There's courage there, and curiosity. She hesitated. May I speak frankly, Your Highness? I believe you already do, he replied with amusement. She fears her marriage. Not the man, I gather he's kind enough, but the cage it represents. Amara's voice dropped lower. She confides in me because I'm outside the court hierarchy. I paint her true self because she allows me glimpses of it. Victor felt a pang of something like envy. How many people saw his true self? Perhaps none. You have a gift beyond technique then. Everyone wears masks, Archduke. Even you. Especially you. Their eyes met, and Victor felt strangely exposed, as if she'd somehow painted his inner portrait during their brief acquaintance. The difference, she continued softly, is that some masks protect while others imprison. I wonder which yours is. Before he could respond, footsteps echoed in the gallery, and Baron Clemens appeared. Your Highness, forgive the interruption. The Minister of War requests your immediate presence. Victor nodded, reluctantly returning to his official self. Thank you for your insights, Miss Ziegler. The pleasure was mine, Archduke. She curtsied properly, but her eyes held a challenge that lingered in his mind long after he departed. That evening, a small package arrived in Amara's quarters, a sketchbook, bound in fine leather, with a note in elegant handwriting, * for your observations of Vienna, beyond the palace walls. The city has truths worth capturing. V. In her studio the next morning, Amara smiled at the gift before setting it aside to continue Princess Sophie's portrait. The sitting was interrupted when Countess Esterhazy entered, her face taut with disapproval. Miss Ziegler, I must remind you of your place, she began without preamble. My place is before this canvas, Countess, Amara replied calmly, continuing to paint. Your place is as a commissioned artist, nothing more. Your familiarity with Princess Sophie is noted. Your conversation with Archduke Victor has become the subject of speculation. Amara finally lowered her brush. What speculation would that be? That you've forgotten the vast gulf between your station and his. The Archduke is betrothed to Duchess Eleonora of Saxony. It will be announced after Princess Sophie's wedding. The information struck Amara with unexpected force, though she kept her expression neutral. I assure you, Countess, I harbor no illusions about my position here. The Archduke merely showed professional courtesy to an artist employed by the imperial family. See that it remains professional, the Countess said sharply before departing. Princess Sophie, who had remained silent during the exchange, spoke once they were alone. Is it true? Did the Archduke give you a gift? A sketchbook, Amara admitted. For capturing Vienna's sights. Sophie's eyes softened. Victor has always been the kindest of my cousins. The most thoughtful. She hesitated. The loneliest too, I think. His mother died when he was young, and his father is a cold man, concerned only with military matters. I'm sorry to hear that, Amara said, resuming her painting. But the Countess is right. I'm here temporarily, to complete my commission and return to America. Is there nothing that would keep you in Vienna? Sophie asked perceptively. Amara made a careful brushstroke before answering. My life is my work, Your Highness. I go where it takes me. But that night, alone in her room, Amara opened the sketchbook and traced her fingers over Victor's initials embossed in the corner. She began to draw the Archduke from memory, his thoughtful eyes, the contained energy in his tall frame, the hint of longing she'd glimpsed beneath his perfect composure. When she realized what she was doing, she quickly closed the book, troubled by emotions she couldn't afford to nurture. The following week brought steady rain, confining the court to indoor activities. Amara worked diligently on Princess Sophie's portrait, now nearing completion. One afternoon, as thunder rumbled outside, Victor appeared at her studio door. Miss Ziegler, he said formally, aware of the footman stationed nearby. I wonder if you might offer your opinion on a matter of artistic importance. Of course, Your Highness. He led her to a rarely used salon where architectural plans were spread across a large table. The footman remained at the door, maintaining propriety while granting them a measure of privacy. The new wing of the military academy requires decoration, Victor explained, indicating the blueprints. I've been asked for input on appropriate themes. Amara studied the plans, conscious of his proximity. These are magnificent spaces. What did you have in mind? The traditional approach would be battle scenes from Habsburg military history, he said. But I'm considering something different. Oh. Perhaps something that captures not just victory, but the human cost of war. The courage of ordinary soldiers. His voice dropped lower. The reality beneath the glory. Amara looked up, meeting his gaze. That would be unconventional. Like an American woman painting an imperial portrait. A slight smile played at his lips. The emperor might not approve such a departure from tradition. The emperor rarely visits the academy. And the cadets might benefit from understanding what truly awaits them. He paused. Have you used the sketchbook? I have, she admitted, not mentioning what, or who, she had drawn in it. And what truths have you found in Vienna? That beauty and sorrow exist side by side here. That empires, like people, wear masks to hide their vulnerabilities. A shadow crossed his face. You see much, Miss Ziegler. It's a habit difficult to break, she said softly. Even when the seeing brings pain. Their eyes held for a moment too long before Victor stepped back, resuming his official demeanor. Thank you for your insights. I shall consider them carefully. As she returned to her studio, Amara felt the weight of the Countess's warning. The gulf between them was unbridgeable, not just rank and nationality, but purpose. Victor was bound to empire, to dynasty, to a political marriage. She was bound only to her art and the truth it revealed. That evening, as Amara worked late into the night on Sophie's portrait, a knock came at her studio door. She opened it to find a palace servant with a sealed note. Inside was a single line in now familiar handwriting, * the Belvedere Gardens at sunrise. The east gate will be unlocked. * She should refuse. She knew this. Yet at dawn, Amara found herself at the east gate of the Belvedere Gardens, her sketchbook tucked under her arm. The rain had cleared, leaving the world washed clean, glistening with droplets that caught the first golden rays of sunlight. Victor waited on a secluded bench, dressed in a simple military uniform without decorations. He stood when he saw her, his face revealing relief that she had come. This is unwise, she said without preamble. Undoubtedly, he agreed. Yet here we are. They walked in silence through the formal gardens, dew soaking the hem of her dress. Finally, Victor spoke. I leave for the southern provinces tomorrow. There are disturbances that require attention. For how long? A month, perhaps more. He stopped beside a marble statue of Athena. Before I go, I wanted to see you without the court watching. Without playing the role of Archduke. And what role do you play instead? She asked quietly. Just a man, he said, who finds himself thinking of an artist when he should be concentrating on affairs of state. Amara felt her resolve weakening. Your Highness, Victor, he corrected. Here, now, just Victor. Victor, she conceded, the informal address feeling dangerously intimate. I know about Duchess Eleonora. He stiffened. Ah. Court gossip travels quickly. Is it merely gossip then? He turned away, staring at the distant mountains. No. The arrangement has existed since childhood. A strategic alliance. It will likely be announced soon. Then why are we here? Amara asked, pain threading through her words. Because for the first time in my life, I find myself questioning what duty requires. He faced her again, his expression unguarded. You asked if my mask protects or imprisons. I never had to consider the question before I met you. I can't be the reason you question your birthright, she said, though her heart raced at his implication. Perhaps that's exactly what I needed, someone who sees the man, not the title. He took her hand, a shocking breach of protocol. "Show me your drawings." Hesitantly, Amara opened her sketchbook. Among Vienna cityscapes and street scenes were studies of Victor, his hands, his profile, his eyes in various lights. The intimacy of the portraits was undeniable. His breath caught. "You see me. I see everyone," she tried to dismiss. "Not like this." He turned the pages, studying each drawing. "You've captured something I've hidden even from myself." "What's that?" "Longing," he said simply. "For purpose beyond ceremony. For connection beyond duty." The rising sun illuminated his face, and Amara found herself memorizing the moment, knowing it could never be recreated on canvas. "I should return before I'm missed," she said reluctantly. "Yes." But he didn't release her hand. "Will you write to me? While I'm away?" The request was improper, impossible, and irresistible. "Where would I send such letters?" "Baron Clemens will arrange it. No one else will know." "And what would these letters say?" "The truth," he replied. "Whatever truth you see in the world. In yourself. And if that truth becomes painful, then at least it will be honest pain, not the numb emptiness of court life." When they parted at the garden gate, no physical contact passed between them beyond the briefest touch of fingers returning the sketchbook. Yet Amara felt branded by the encounter, marked in ways invisible to others but blazingly evident to her artist's eye. That afternoon, she completed Princess Sophie's portrait with a feverish intensity. When the princess came for her final sitting, she gasped upon seeing the finished work. "Is that truly me?" she whispered, staring at the canvas. Amara had painted Sophie not in her court finery, but in a moment of quiet reflection, a book open in her lap, her expression thoughtful yet determined. Behind her, through a window, loomed the mountains of Bavaria, her future, rendered not as a threatening unknown but as a landscape of possibility. "It's who you are beneath the title," Amara said. "The woman I came to know during our conversations." Tears welled in Sophie's eyes. "I've never seen myself this way. Strong. As if I might face whatever comes with dignity." "You will," Amara assured her. That strength was always there. The portrait caused a sensation when unveiled to the imperial family. The emperor frowned at its departure from tradition, but the empress was visibly moved. "You have given us Sophie's soul, not merely her likeness," she told Amara. A remarkable achievement. In the weeks that followed, Amara found herself unexpectedly commissioned to paint several other members of the court. She accepted, partly to extend her time in Vienna, partly to distract herself from thoughts of Victor, fighting unrest in distant provinces. Their correspondence began cautiously. His first letter arrived via Baron Clemens, sealed with wax but bearing no insignia. "The mountains here remind me of your eyes, changeable, revealing depths in certain lights. The situation is complex. Grievance is legitimate but expression sometimes violent. I find myself caught between duty to crown and understanding of suffering. What would your artist's eye see in this landscape of conflict? V*, she replied that night. My artist's eye sees the same patterns everywhere, people yearning for dignity, for recognition of their essential humanity. Perhaps the greatest art of leadership is finding harmony in discord, seeing the composition beneath the chaos. Today I painted Countess Esterhazy. She speaks constantly of propriety yet her eyes hold ancient grief. Every portrait becomes a confession, though few subjects realize what they've revealed. The palace feels different in your absence. Quieter, yet somehow less peaceful. Their letters continued, growing more personal with each exchange. Victor described witnessing poverty in rural villages that shook his faith in imperial governance. Amara confessed her childhood in Philadelphia, daughter of a professor father and musician mother who had sacrificed to send her to Paris for artistic training. I remember my first royal commission in Paris. She wrote. I was terrified, convinced some invisible protocol would be my downfall. Instead, I found that beneath the titles and ceremonies were simply people, more constrained than most, perhaps lonelier, but with the same human hearts. Victor replied, you've identified precisely what I've always felt but never articulated, the loneliness of prescribed existence. Each day mapped before living it. Yet in these mountains, making decisions that affect real lives, I feel strangely more myself than in the palace. Your letters are beacons. Each one illuminates something I didn't know I needed to see. As spring advanced toward summer, rumors circulated about Victor's return and the expected announcement of his engagement. Amara threw herself into her commissions, painting with a passionate intensity that earned her even greater acclaim. Her portraits seemed to capture not just physical likenesses but essential truths about their subjects, the hidden sorrows, the concealed strengths. Only in her private sketchbook did she allow herself to draw Victor from memory, his hands, his thoughtful gaze, the rare smile that transformed his face. When Baron Clemens informed her that the Archduke would return within the week, Amara made a decision. She would complete her remaining commissions and return to America before the engagement announcement. Their impossible connection must end before it damaged Victor's position or her heart beyond repair. Her last letter to him was brief, your return brings joy to the palace, though the announcement to follow will solidify your path. My work here concludes soon. I shall carry Vienna in my heart and my art always. Some portraits remain incomplete only in execution, not in vision. With deepest respect and admiration. Amara. The day before Victor's scheduled return, the Empress summoned Amara to her private apartments, an unprecedented honor that set court tongues wagging. The Empress sat by a window overlooking the gardens, looking more like a tired woman than an imperial figurehead. Miss Ziegler, your work has brought something valuable to our court. You honor me, Your Majesty. Truth is always an honor, though not always comfortable. The Empress studied her shrewdly. You've announced your intention to depart soon. Yes, Your Majesty. My commissions are nearly complete. There is one more I would request. The Empress rang a small bell, and a servant entered with a covered canvas on an easel, setting it up before withdrawing. When the Empress unveiled it, Amara gasped. It was a portrait of Victor in military uniform, technically accomplished but utterly lifeless, showing his features but missing his essence. This was painted last year, the Empress explained. A fine likeness, all agree. Yet after seeing your work, I find it insufficient. Amara stared at the portrait, uncertain how to respond. My nephew returns tomorrow, the Empress continued. Certain announcements are expected. Yet the reports from his mission suggest a transformation. His dispatches show new understanding of the Empire's challenges. I'm glad his mission proved enlightening, Your Majesty. Indeed. Accompanied by letters in a certain distinctive hand, delivered by Baron Clemens. The Empress's gaze was penetrating but not unkind. The Baron is discreet, but loyal first to the crown. Amara felt blood drain from her face. Your Majesty, the Empress raised a hand. I do not seek explanations or apologies, Miss Ziegler. I seek understanding. She gestured to Victor's portrait. I want you to paint him as you see him. The true Victor, not merely the Archduke. Your Majesty, such a commission would be complicated. Life is complicated, Miss Ziegler. Empires doubly so. The Empress sighed. The Habsburg dynasty has survived by strategic marriages, by sacrificing individual happiness for imperial stability. Yet we face new times, new challenges. Perhaps new approaches are needed. I'm not certain I understand. Paint the portrait, the Empress said firmly. Consider it my final commission before your departure, if departure remains your choice. With those cryptic words, the audience ended, leaving Amara bewildered. Was the Empress acknowledging the connection between herself and Victor? Approving it? Or simply extracting one final artistic truth before severing it? The next morning, Vienna bustled with preparation for the Archduke's return. Amara remained in her studio, packing her supplies, her heart heavy with anticipation and dread. A knock at her door revealed Princess Sophie, now just days from her own wedding. You're leaving, Sophie said, noticing the half-packed trunks. My work is complete, Amara replied. Not all of it. Sophie closed the door behind her. The Empress told me of her commission. I haven't decided whether to accept. Because you fear seeing him again, or because you fear what your brush might reveal? Amara looked away. Both, perhaps. Do you know why I was so moved by my portrait? Sophie asked. Because you showed me possibilities I hadn't dared imagine. Strength I hadn't claimed. She took Amara's hands. Perhaps Victor needs to see himself through your eyes just as much. He has a prescribed path, as do you. Yes, but how we walk that path matters. My marriage proceeds, but your portrait gave me courage to negotiate certain freedoms within it. Sophie smiled. The Bavarian court will have a library specially for the princess, and I shall correspond with scholars throughout Europe. Amara squeezed her hands. I'm glad. Life finds ways, Amara, even within gilded constraints. Sophie glanced toward the window, where trumpets announced the Archduke's approaching entourage. Will you at least see him before deciding? That afternoon, the palace held a formal reception for Victor's return. Amara attended at the Empress's insistence, standing at the periphery as the court elite welcomed the Archduke. Victor looked leaner, sun-darkened from weeks outdoors. His eye scanned the room as he performed the necessary greetings, finally finding Amara in her corner. The recognition in his gaze was palpable, a current that seemed to cross the crowded space between them. He continued his dutiful circuit of the room, but Amara felt the weight of unspoken words with each glance in her direction. When the formal reception concluded, Amara slipped away to her studio, heart pounding. She had nearly reached it when footsteps sounded behind her. Miss Ziegler. She turned to find Victor, still in his formal uniform, alone in the corridor. Your Highness, she curtsied. Welcome back to Vienna. Is that all you have to say? His voice was low, controlled, but she heard the emotion beneath. What would you have me say? That I missed your letters? That I dreaded your return because it marks the end of whatever this impossible thing between us might be called. I would have you say my name, as you did in the garden, he said, stepping closer. I would have you look at me, not the Archduke. Victor, she whispered, meeting his eyes. I'm leaving Vienna. I know. The Empress informed me. His jaw tightened. She also showed me your letter. Which letter? Your farewell. And then requested I sit for a portrait before certain announcements are made. Amara leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. What game is she playing? The Empress rarely plays games. She tests, she challenges, but always with purpose. He hesitated. Will you paint me, Amara? One last time before you go. The sound of her given name on his lips broke something inside her. How can I paint what I can't bear to lose? Before he could answer, voices approached from an adjoining corridor. Victor stepped back, his face resuming its public mask just as two courtiers rounded the corner. They bowed to the Archduke, nodded respectfully to Amara, and continued on their way. Tomorrow, Victor said quietly. My private study. The Empress has already arranged it. The next morning found Amara setting up her easel in Victor's study, a room that reflected his true character more than any palace space she'd seen, maps and military texts alongside volumes of poetry and philosophy, sketches of fortifications pinned beside drawings of mountain landscapes. When he arrived, he wore not his formal uniform but the simpler one he'd worn in the field, minus decorations. Is this acceptable? He asked. For the portrait. It's perfect, she replied. It's you. For 3 hours they maintained a careful distance, artist and subject. Amara worked intensely, capturing the changes in him since his departure, the new resolve in his jaw, the deeper understanding in his eyes. They spoke little, the air between them charged with unspoken feelings. On the second day, as afternoon light slanted through the windows, Victor broke the silence. I'm not marrying Duchess Eleonora. Amara's brush faltered. What? The arrangement has been reconsidered. My uncle is displeased, but the Empress has intervened. Why? Amara managed, heart thundering. Because I requested it. Because the succession is secure through my older brother. Because the empire needs new relationships with its people, not just its nobility. He stood, moving toward her. Because your letters showed me a different way of seeing duty. Victor, I can't marry where my heart doesn't reside, he said. That much I've learned. The rest remains uncertain. The rest? Where duty and desire might find common ground. He glanced at the half-finished portrait. You capture the question in my eyes perfectly. On the third day, Amara arrived to find the Empress already in Victor's study, examining her progress. Remarkable, the Empress said. You've captured his transformation. Thank you, Your Majesty. I shall leave you to complete your work. The Empress moved toward the door, then paused. Miss Ziegler, history remembers those who recognize the changing tides. The Empire faces challenges that cannot be met with old methods alone. With that cryptic statement, she departed. Victor arrived moments later. Was that my aunt I passed in the corridor? Yes. Making enigmatic statements about tides of history. He smiled. She excels at those. As Amara painted, Victor spoke of his time in the provinces, the conditions he'd witnessed, the reforms he now advocated. Your perspective changed how I saw their struggles. Artist's eyes, seeing the essential humanity beneath superficial differences. And what did you see with those borrowed eyes? That empires endure not by force but by adaptation. By expanding who belongs within them. He watched her brush strokes. That applies to imperial families as well as imperial borders. On the fourth day, the portrait neared completion. Amara worked with bittersweet intensity, knowing each brush stroke brought them closer to farewell. The victor on her canvas looked directly at the viewer, his expression complex, resolute yet questioning, powerful yet vulnerable. Tomorrow Princess Sophie marries, he said as the light faded. The court departs for the cathedral at dawn. I know. I've said my goodbyes to her. And to me. His voice was soft. Amara set down her brush. This portrait is my goodbye, Victor. Everything I cannot say aloud is there on the canvas. And if I refuse to accept it? The goodbye, not the portrait. Some separations aren't choices but necessities. He crossed to her then, propriety abandoned. Is that what your artist's eye sees? Necessity? Or fear disguised as wisdom? Both, she admitted. I fear loving what I cannot keep. Who says you cannot keep it? He took her hands, stained with paint. The world changes, Amara. Empires evolve or they crumble. Hearts too. What are you saying? I'm saying there are many forms of service to empire. Diplomatic roles. Cultural ambassadorships. His eyes held hers. Positions where an American artist might serve alongside an Austrian archduke. You've thought about this, she whispered. Every day since I left. Every night as I read your letters. He touched her cheek. The Empress sees it too, the need for new perspectives, new connections to the changing world. It's impossible, she protested, even as hope bloomed. Difficult, he corrected. Unprecedented. But not impossible. He gestured to the portrait. You've painted who I am becoming, not just who I was. A man who sees duty and desire not as opposing forces, but as complementary ones. Princess Sophie's wedding dawned clear and beautiful. From her studio window, Amara watched the imperial procession depart for the cathedral, golden carriages gleaming in the morning light. Victor rode on horseback beside the emperor's carriage, resplendent in full dress uniform. On her easel stood his completed portrait, still drying, a man of intellect and compassion, of duty illuminated by understanding. Beside it lay a sealed letter from the empress, delivered at dawn, Miss Ziegler, your portrait of my niece showed her strength. Your portrait of my nephew shows his heart. Both qualities are essential for the empire's future. I propose a commission of significant duration, official court artist with special responsibility for diplomatic portraits throughout the Habsburg realms and beyond. Baron Clemens will provide details of the position, should it interest you. Some traditions must be preserved, others must evolve. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference. Elizabeth, Empress. Amara's hands trembled as she reread the letter. Outside, the last carriages disappeared toward the cathedral. She turned to the window, torn between possibility and prudence, when a knock sounded at her door. Baron Clemens stood there, immaculate as always. "Miss Ziegler, your presence is requested." "At the wedding?" "I wasn't invited, not at the cathedral." "Afterward." "The Empress wishes you to attend a private reception at Schönbrunn." He hesitated. "She also instructed me to answer any questions you might have about the proposed position." "Is this truly possible, Baron? For someone like me to have a place at this court?" His formal demeanor softened slightly. "Courts change, Miss Ziegler. Sometimes from within, sometimes through outside influence." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "The Archduke's portrait, may I see it?" She led him to the easel. Clemens studied it in silence, his expression unreadable. "You've captured not just the man, but his potential," he said finally. "The Empire needs such vision." He turned to her. "The carriage will arrive at 4. The Emperor suggested you might want to wear this." He handed her a box containing a gown of deep blue silk, simple by court standards but undeniably elegant. Beneath it lay an official invitation bearing the Habsburg seal and a small note in Victor's handwriting, *. Some lines are meant to be crossed. Some portraits deserve their own frames. Some stories write their own endings. As spring sunshine filled her studio, Amara looked from the portrait to the gown to the letter in her hands. In her mind, she could already see the composition taking shape, not of boundaries transgressed, but of new patterns formed. Not of rules broken, but of perspectives widened. She would attend the reception. She would wear the blue gown. And she would bring her sketchbook, ready to capture whatever truths tomorrow might reveal. For the first time since arriving in Vienna, Amara felt herself not just the observer but the observed, not just the artist but part of the composition itself. Whatever canvas awaited, she would face it with open eyes and steady hands, ready to paint outside the lines that had always seemed so fixed, so final. In the distance, cathedral bells rang out, announcing Princess Sophie's marriage. But in Amara's heart, they seemed to herald something else, a beginning rather than an end, a doorway rather than a boundary. With artist's eyes, she could finally see it clearly. Some portraits were never truly finished, but continued to develop, colors deepening, perspectives shifting, revealing new truths with each passing day.